Good evening and welcome to the Animation Masters Summit 2022. Hopefully, we'll all be together in person next year, but this year it is virtual again. And in this hybrid world, we have the possibility of bringing two amazing gentlemen together from two different continents. Kirit Khurana here in Mumbai in India, and Firdaus Kharas in Ottawa in Canada. And when we were asked to put a panel together, and we thought, let's think of something really powerful and different. We thought the power of animation has never been more effective, except in the space where it creates a social and economic upliftment. And so I offered to bring these two gentlemen together to inspire you with the immense stuff that we've done. Kirit has won 6 president national awards. I'm assuming from different presidents because it's such a long period of time. He's worked on, he's got 15 international awards. He comes from Sheridan College, and that's the connection. They both have Canadian connections. And 25 years, he's worked with a brand called Climb, and isn't today all about how we can climb that social ladder together. So a very warm welcome to you, Kirit. Firdaus, known for many, many years. We normally meet at in an evening with a good glass of something at Annecy for a long time. He happens to be someone that I first met when I entered the animation industry in the year 2000, when he was bringing projects to India, and it was my job to learn how to spell animation and help him to deliver those projects at a company called UTV, now the Walt Disney Company of India. Firdaus' statistics are too difficult to recount, but I know that he has participated in some 4,500 short films in 61 series, and in 198 countries and 450 languages, and he has impacted 1 billion people. And at that moment, my memory gets completely overwhelmed. So I just leave you with that story. And you will see that the awards he's won, in the process of doing that, are substantially not just commercial, but to the topic of today, both Kirit and Firdaus are people that have used the buzz of storytelling beyond the daily entertainment paradigm and actually helped to reach out to the consciousness of people in order to create change. So with those words, I am delighted and honored to welcome both of them to the 2022 version of the Animation Masters.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Kirit. And we've worked together in a commercial context, and with the Toonpur Ka Superhero when I was at Eros, etc. But today, I think if you can share and inspire the folks around with how have you imagined the stories in animation for shooting arrows into people's hearts in order to do good and great things. Maybe you can lead with that.
So thanks, Brian, for having me here. First of all, I think it is gravitating towards films with social causes. By the way, even Toonpur was an agenda for me. It was a film that was meant to be an impact film because it was a film that was meant to open up the animation industry. And the way I was doing it was a little subversive, which is getting a live action superstars to actually act in the film so that animation becomes acceptable. So I've always had that angle of trying to, try to get how we can create impact, how we can open up things. The social causes, the empathy towards social causes and wanting to make a difference is something that obviously I've been grown up with because my father, he was the Indian animation pioneer, Bhimsen, and he made this wonderful film called Ek Anek Ekta that everybody remembers. But there are other at least 20-30 films that he made that people may not recall because they were in the 70s and 80s. They created a huge impact. But of course, the one single film that has created the maximum impact is Ek Anek Ekta, his film. So I was growing up in that environment, and I was obviously been inculcated with those values. But as things stand, obviously in India, funding for social causes and films for social causes is not so easy. So a lot of it is self-funded, and because of which I have to rely on advertising and I have to rely on commercial jobs, on other things. And as and when I have some extra funds, then I divert those funds to actually make films on social causes. So that's how we've been sort of running our enterprise so far.
That's great. And we're going to come back to you to talk in more detail about some of those specifically.
Sure.
But yes, I think one of my early moments learning about animation was a wonderful lunch at your house, sitting together on the floor with you and having a lovely meal with your father and yourself. And just those moments are as inspirational, Kirit, as you will be to many young people in the audience today. So I recall that very, very, very fondly. Firdaus, over to you. You know, we are talking about how do we create ideals by actually taking ideas for change to people all over the world, and how do these happen? What is the trigger moment? How do you imagine those? How do you make it happen? And Kirit has quite importantly talked about the fact that these are not things that are commercially very easy to do, right? And yet you've been able to do this so prolifically. So maybe you can shed some light on that.
Okay, thanks very much, Birain. First of all, it's a pleasure to see you again. I look forward to our next meeting in Annecy. Thanks for having me on this panel, and with Kirit, whose work I've known for many years. So I've been doing this for 27 years now, started in the mid-1990s with something called the Cartoons for Children's Rights, which was UNICEF's idea of taking the Convention on the Rights of Children and animating every single right in it, and Kirit also worked on that. And I've been doing it ever since. So yes, you're right. So now I have about 4,300 animated shorts, and they're on 61 different topics. So let's start with a basic question, because the audience is animators. Why animation? I'm going to give you 8 different reasons for why animation. First, you can reach any audience anywhere in the world. Animation you can able to reach any audience. Second, you can create universal characters. So I have animated condoms, I have animated, talking condoms, I've animated all kinds of people. So even if you take kind of more realistic animation, you can create animate characters that can go around the world. Third, the audience is accepting. Why is the audience accepting? Because they know that what they're seeing is not real. So the very difficult issues I've dealt with, for example, rape in the Congo, those kinds of issues are best dealt with when the audience is accepting, because they know that what they're seeing is not real, it's animated. Fourth, you can have global acceptance around the world. You can have regional acceptance in India. You can have national acceptance. Doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, what language it is, you find acceptance. Fifth, you have non-realism. It's not real, so that you don't get offended. So if I, for example, when I was talking about HIV/AIDS, if I'd shown real condoms, and people tried that before we did animation in a country like South Africa, people objected and they threw them off the air. Then you have what is called a suspension of your disbelief system, which is basically you are suspending the fact that you're not believing. And seventh or eighth, it's easy to sync with other languages. India, of course, is a very diverse country. We have 27 official languages and so on. So it's easy to sync, so that if you have a Southern Indian talking in, let's say, Hindi and Northern Indian language, there's a disconnection. But with animation, the character can speak any language and you're accepting. And finally, it allows for innovation. Animation is a medium that allows for animation. So all my work for the last 27 years, I should say, has been animated in India. Almost all my work has been animated in India. So I do the scripts, I do the things, the research and the scripts, and then I give them to India to animate, and then they send them back to me, and I put them into languages, and now they exist in about 450 language versions. I'm careful not to say languages, because they're like 80 versions of English and 40 versions of French and so on. So why do we do this? Why do people not understand the importance of this. It's very simple. They don't understand the economics of it. So to answer Kirit's question, and I will tell any government official this anywhere in the world, you have to understand prevention is better than treating somebody. So a lot of my work has been on disease prevention, more recently on COVID, but before that, for example, on Ebola, on HIV/AIDS, on Zika, on dementia, on diabetes, on all kinds of issues around the world that are health related. Let's take Ebola as an example. I created 3 animated shorts that went to West Africa on Ebola. The first one was to contain the crisis while it was going on in West Africa a few years ago. The second one was to prevent the next Ebola crisis from happening. And the third one was to deal with the stigma of people that had Ebola but hadn't died. There was a lot of stigma, particularly against young people. Let's take the containment as an example. It costs up to $1 million per person to treat them with Ebola. Up to $1 million in the West. In a country like West Africa, it was costing between $20,000 and $50,000 to treat one person with Ebola. Now, supposing I had prevented 2 people, just 2, it would have paid more than paid for the entire animation series. All of it, production, distribution, everything. Just 2 people preventing. So it's very cost effective. These social issues are very cost effective if you understand the impact. And we can talk more about how you create the impact, because the one thing I can tell you I never do is I never tell people how to behave. I only create what is called cognitive dissonance in their head, which is an alternate way of thinking or of doing, but the person has to internalize the message and then come to their own conclusion to change their behavior. Right.
That's a great insight, Firdaus, and I know that I think for storytellers who want to create social change, maybe that's the big message. So Kirit, talking of what Firdaus is talking about is, changing the way people think, right, is the object of challenging people's thoughts, making them go out of their comfort zones, out of the ordinary, out of the things that people believe can be done, or more importantly, cannot be done, right? For example, in the case of the social space is not that crowded, because as much as you say it's difficult to do, that's also the opportunity. Because everyone's rushing to make the next superhero movie, everyone's rushing to make the next, the soap on TV, the next serial. But this space is not crowded, and therefore, I think it takes a certain passion to do things like that. Would you like to share some of how that motivated you and how that inspired you, and maybe some examples of how you made people think differently, right?
So I mean, basically, the thing is that, of course, you always want to impact change through your films, and that's one of the dreams that any good filmmaker would have is, that are my films actually impacting change, or are they indelible in that sense? So that has been one of the prime reasons also why I've been looking towards social causes, is also because, we wanted to kind of bring something out that people are not really interested in talking about, but it's an important subject. It can potentially impact society, and it can change things. And there is a strong call to action if it's an impact film. One of the examples that I would like to cite is the fact that we did some 5 films for the Childline. Childline is one of the biggest helplines in the world, 1098, and we were commissioned some 4 films by them. Now, typically, animation, of course, Firdaus will agree with me that Firdaus has at his disposal perhaps a lot more funds and a lot more agencies that are willing to back him up than there are in India, because there are only that few agencies in India that are actually willing to. The NGOs over here are not really spending on audiovisual content to create that. There is a certain mindset that we should not be creating audiovisual content because it's of no use. So that mindset is not there. But with Childline, we did some 4 films that were really did well, and one of them, Komal, which also won the national award in 2015, was on child sexual abuse. Now, again, I would like to, completely agree with Firdaus in that sense that animation, a film on child sexual abuse cannot be done without the animation medium, because it become too gross. If you want to show about good touch, bad touch, and you want to talk about many other things, there is a certain graphic element of animation and there's a certain disconnect from reality, which sort of makes animation a lot more palatable as a medium, as a format to make films on. And I made all the 4 films on various subjects, on child labor, I think one of them child marriage, child labor, and child abuse, and one of them was child sexual abuse. I made them all 4 with the same heart and the same intent. But Komal, because it was in child sexual abuse, I think the cause was far more important, and it found a lot greater velocity. So the film not only did win a national award, but it was made compulsory. It is still made compulsory viewing in schools in India. So more than 250, 300 million kids have seen it in India. And I have people who come up to tell me, oh, you made the film? Oh, we didn't know about this because my kid has been shown the film. And that's a great validation, because it's not about who's made it, but it's about the message having gotten out there. So Komal was shown in 120 countries and dubbed in 30 foreign languages. UNHCR commended it as the best animation film made on child sexual abuse. So these were some of the accolades some of the validation and the accolades that we got for the film. And it was almost like a crowning glory in terms of whatever I was doing. Of course, we were consistently making good quality films. But this particular film just stood out, and it just stuck out. And of course, there's some of the recent lockdown works obviously have also stood out. But among all the works that I have that have created impact, perhaps Komal would stand out as the one that has actually created a really solid impact, because it's being shown in rural areas as well. And there are mobile vans that actually take the film as well. They show it as well. So it feels great that, a short film that is 10 minutes long can actually have such a great longevity and such a great reach, that after 7 or 8 years of it being made, it's still valid. One of the other things that I would like to add to Firdaus's list of why animation is preferable is that when you create animation, it's evergreen. There is no life to it. You can watch animation films, you can watch Tom and Jerry even today. You can watch a lot of animation stuff even today. It doesn't seem to be growing older. It doesn't seem to be aging. And that's one of the attributes why Komal today also is a film that is preferred as a device or as a tool to actually teach children how to keep themselves safe. So it's been a very fulfilling journey. Among all the things that we do a lot of things. When you reach out to parents, when parents come to you and they tell you, oh, we're really grateful that you made this film, it really validates everything that you do. It's a wonderful experience.
Well, that's truly inspirational. Firdaus, they say that in life, you have 3 choices: you give up, you give in, or you give it everything you've got, right? So I think as a filmmaker, as a content creator wanting to create social change, for many reasons, Kirit touched upon funding as one of them, but we also talked about the difficulty of portraying, very difficult situations in life. There are many people who've attempted to do what the 2 of you have done, and I think some people give up, some people are made to give it, some people give in, and some people give it everything you've got. Now, in the process of giving it everything you've got, and you give some pointers as to why animation before, but also I have seen, Firdaus, from the work that you have done, there are certain things that you did, and I'll just refer to, for example, I remember when you created Three Amigos about condoms and AIDS, you stitched together ways by which local agencies in different countries would have to come together. So you would give it free to a broadcaster, if I recall this correctly, but the broadcaster, for example, in France, had to tie up with an AIDS agency. So there would be a call to action, and the film could actually then do something rather than just be a message on air. Would you like to talk about, when you give it everything you've got, it's more than the story, it's more than the production of the content. It's about creating something that can really have a result on the ground.
Absolutely right. I'll give you two very good examples. Look, community involvement is critical to making our work. So I quite often say, I'm not a frontline worker. I make tools for frontline workers, but I'm not a frontline worker myself. I couldn't possibly be in so many countries and in so many issues. So let me give you two very good examples. The first one was, I referred to this earlier, was I created a video on trying to change the attitudes of men towards victims of rape in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Congo has, on a per capita basis, the highest rate of rape in the world. And this is a deeply entrenched attitude that you're trying to reach, to change. And I thought that I would show it to men and get a discussion going. So this is what I call a catalyst video. The idea is to create a discussion, and it is that discussion on a local basis within the audience that creates the change. However, women are the people who took it up, and women watched it by their thousands, and then they used to have a discussion. And then they go and march to the local politician's house or whatever to demand change. So then some women took it from the Congo and started moving it across into other countries like Uganda and Zambia and so on. Then some women shot it across, all the way across Africa to the northern region of Nigeria, where there's a murderous organization, or many organizations, but a murderous organization called Boko Haram that has been kidnapping and raping children. They took that video into classrooms in the northern in northern Nigeria and started having young women talk about rape. They showed it, for example, and I have a video of this. They showed it at in a church, and they invited women to come and watch it, and 3,000 women showed up. 3,000 women. So I have this video of this kind of small screen, and 3,000 people came to watch this video. So it's local action, it's local community use of it that makes it really relevant. Let me give you another example on the other side of it. And the other side is I created a series, which Birain, called Hind and Hamza, which was for the Al Jazeera Children's Channel. And it went to over 150 million households in the Middle East in Arabic on issues like creating understanding of each other, anti-racism, anti-pollution, children's rights, gender equality between boys and girls. Now, you can imagine that creating an Arabic series that proposes gender equality between boys and girls going directly into households throughout the Middle East for 2 years is something that is fraught with peril. It could have blown up. It didn't blow up, and none of my work has blown up because I spend a great deal of time as a creator thinking about what I call the influencers or the barriers to human communication. So the barriers to human communication are the differences that we all have. The language differences, the national differences, the religious differences, the linguistic, the culture that we all have. And we all have these in ourselves. I'm an Indian-born Parsi, Canadian citizen. So all of these factors in my life have influenced the way I communicate, both the way I give communications and the way I filter and receive communications. So if somebody has a small bias against women, for example, then anything a woman says to him will have a little kind of, there'll be some interaction, some bias that he has, but somebody else might have a very strong bias against women. And so the woman communicating to that person becomes a barrier to effective communication. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get around these barriers, especially in a place like the Middle East, especially in a multicultural country like India. I mean, India has so many religions, so many people, so many ethnicities, so many backgrounds, so many regions across the country. So you have to consider very, very carefully how you get around the differences that we all have as human beings. Nobody's immune from it. We all have what I call a frame of reference in our brains. And that frame, it's like a lens through which we receive and through which we make communications. And we have to get around those in order to reach, in my case, well over 1 billion, probably over 2 billion people. And my work has been used in 198 countries around the world, which is pretty much every country on the planet, even North Korea, from what I understand.
Wow. So I think, one of the things that no one can actually claim, and I think many summits, not just the Animation Masters Summit here that we are speaking at, people talk about box office, people talk about, what their films have achieved, people talk about, the languages it goes to. But I think one of the things that both of you are, trying to achieve, and I think you touched upon it in this last segment, is how do you create global themes for local resonance? Because ultimately, it's like dubbing, it's like subtitling. Every time you create a piece of content and it goes into a new language or a new context, it is a fresh piece of content again, right? So one particular series or one particular film that you make is a new film every time it goes somewhere else. And I think for you to then figure out how to overcome those barriers is really a very key part of putting that together. So Kirit, they keep saying that when we talk to our own kids, or if for example your wife and you are illustrious teachers for young students, they say don't tell people your dreams, show them, right? It's always about, hey, can you show people, right? Because what you show them is what they imbibe. What you tell them doesn't have the same impact. And I think that's really the power of animation, right? Whether it's a Disney or whether it's Kirit or Firdaus, they are trying to message something using the power of animation as a language in order to create portals of discovery for people to find out that, hey, what I know and what I'm seeing in my friends and neighbors and schools, etc., is not necessarily the only way. There are new ways. There is new hope. There is new light. There is new ways for me to do something that's bigger than what I know. So how do you, Kirit, imagine your themes where you want to show people things that they don't know, and how do you find that inspiration and show them stuff that like really challenges them?
So in my case, I'm very clear. I don't find themes. The themes find me. They find me, and they somehow have a way or ability to attract my attention, and I get drawn into it. And I unwittingly sometimes I get drawn into it, and I get sucked into it so much that I start becoming the cause by itself. So a few things that I'd like to share. A couple of things I'd like to share. Like during the pandemic, it was completely unforeseen, obviously, and there was a huge lockdown in India, and it was a very sudden, abrupt lockdown. Perhaps we had the most abrupt lockdown in the world. And then subsequently, we had a huge migration of the migrant workers. So the migrant workers walk for thousands of miles sometimes, hundreds of miles, many of them thousands of miles sometimes. Many of them died on the way. And to top it all, we had an immense amount of vitriolic, vitiating news coming out from the media which was extremely bigoted and extremely parochial and very, very divisive. And the hurt that I was experiencing at that time, to watch the migrants walk and for them to be blamed and to be called traitors and anti-nationals and to be called vermins and God knows what all terms would be being used for them, that was really, really hurtful. And that sort of became the theme for Pravasi, with the film that became extremely popular during the pandemic, the short film that I made. And of course, I made another film called Safar. So Pravasi incidentally means migrants, and Safar is obviously the journey. And I had the wonderful collaboration of some of the top actresses in India. So the films went viral and more than 200 million views each of these films got. Wow. And they became extremely popular. And yeah, they were shown on national media. I think NDTV did an hour-long program on it. And so did India Today also did an hour-long program on it. So the idea is that that was one way of, sort of, that is what happened with these films. With the film that I'm making on the homeless, I'm making a film on the homeless. Now, I do not know about the homeless, and I honestly speaking, in 2015, I didn't care about the homeless. They were the invisible. They were completely invisibilized for me. I mean, of course, I was working on various social causes, so I had a chip on my shoulder and thinking like, yo, I'm this empathetic person, and I can't do anything wrong to anybody. But I just by ignoring or wishing away certain people on the streets, I was doing that all the time. And then in 2015, I got invited to this fellowship program, which is by invite, and there are top 125 social leaders who are part of it. And it's called the Aspire Circle. And over there, I met this gentleman called Tariq Mohammed, who actually works with the homeless, and extremely bright guy, very, very intelligent guy. Left everything at 17. He wanted to be an IS officer, left everything. And then he decided to, submit his life entirely to the cause of the homelessness. And when he would narrate the stories, they were so beautiful and they were so heart-rending that I would cry, and everybody listening to him would cry. And I was wondering, the enormity of the problem is so huge. There are 70 million homeless people on the streets. 70 million, that's more than the population of France. And there is not a single documentary, there's no single audiovisual, there's no reference on them, nobody really gives a damn. They've been completely invisibilized. And when I started spending time with him, and when I started going out for his night outings and to meet these people, they came alive for me. They came alive. They are far more empathetic than us. They have far greater dignity than most of us. I'm not talking about some bad examples here and there, but the idea is that most of them are genuinely wonderful human beings, and they are far more empathetic than us. And just because they are on the streets, and just because they are underprivileged and disenfranchised and marginalized, and therefore they count for nothing, the politicians don't even look their way. And this guy and his organization is doing some wonderful work with them. And I thought this is a film that needs to be made, because this film needs to reach out to every single politician. It needs to reach out to every single bureaucrat, because we need to show them the mirror. Only when we are an empathetic society, only when a nation is only as strong as its weakest link. And the weakest link, if it is right on the streets and it's seeing abject poverty and people are dying in beggars' homes, I mean, it was very, very hurtful for me. And I cried throughout I shot for 52 days. Of course, I didn't shoot it at a stretch, but throughout the entire process of 2 years, I cried throughout it. It was a very cathartic experience for everybody. It was a very close, soul cleansing experience for me as well. And I tried to look for funding, to be honest. But nobody wants to fund films, documentary film on the homeless. So I said, well, to help with everybody, I will put my own funds. So I had to wait for advertising money to come in, and slowly by slowly, all the money that trickled in, I would, funnel it back into the project, and then we completed the film. And of course, now it's traveling to the festivals and doing pretty well.
Well, that is a really great story. I think it's been said that when things hurt us, all we can do is to observe it and understand that life is trying to teach us something. And then I think
Absolutely.
if you take that learning and then you create content out of it, like you've done in this instance, when something really hurt you and you observed it, right? Obviously, the power of what you have internalized, and then you are now telling that story that you learned from this observation.
Yes, and
Sachi, it's difficult. It's ignored. It needs to be told, and really kudos for staying that
and
course in
I'm
spite of
I'm going to the extent to say that we can understand our humanity only when we see it in others. Otherwise, we cannot. I mean, the idea is we are not human enough if we cannot see that in others. If we are so self-serving and we are so self-centered that we don't really care about the people on the streets. And I was one of them, by the way. So I'm complicit for that. I'm guilty of that as well. So, but it's been a soul cleansing experience. It's changed me forever as a person, and I'm a much, much better person now.
I think I have been on many panels, and I have been to many conferences, and I look at events where we all, in our corporate avatar, in our personal life, we seek for meaning and purpose. But in a sense, the two of you have had it very easy, because the themes that you touch evoke the heart and the soul, and they automatically bring about a purpose that is not ordinarily found in commercial ventures. And yes, Kirit, you and for those have been in several wonderful commercial ventures, and you talked about how you need that in order to fuel, to fuel this. You are not, you don't have the patronage of some Raja or Sultan or government or king from somewhere that keeps giving this money to you. I think that like companies and businesses look for a high performance outcome to what they do in their purpose. I actually think that this panel is a way to salute the two of you and those who work in the areas that you do, to say that you really are touching the deeper purpose of what the content can create. So I would like to get closing comments from both of you, and hopefully we're going to give AWS a little bit of a taste of what you've done through some clips that we'll have at the end of this conversation. But, to you, Firdaus, I mean, how do you, even in the dark themes in the examples you gave, in all that darkness, you have actually seen that your content has created, if I may use the word sunshine, it has created light, because you have brought something to them that has had a multiplier effect in their understanding of a difficult situation. And I think that's probably what might be something that gives you the greatest satisfaction. Do you see by which we can create? Now there are many opportunities through family funds and the philanthropy that we are seeing, and I'll Kirit next, because now India is the first country in the world that makes it compulsory for large organizations to spend a part of their money on corporate social responsibility. So I'll come to Kirit on the India front, and of course, for those, you are also someone that can champion the cause. But how do you see the efforts that you put in with such a lot of rigor and commitment and investment of yourself? How do you see this multiplier effect becoming greater? How do we create the next 1,000 Firdauses in the world?
First of all, I'm giving a course, and then I intend to give more courses myself to including in India, I hope, in later this year, to try and pass on some of my knowledge. But look, I think what we need to do is we need to grasp the new age that we're living in. For the first time in human history, we're able to reach almost every person on this planet with direct two-way personal communications. When I was growing up in India, there was no television at all. Then when we started television, there was like Doordarshan, and it came on in the evening, and then we moved on further from there. If my father wanted to make a call from Bombay to London, he had to book a trunk call. It took 3 weeks to get the call on an urgent basis. I mean, those days are gone. We need to understand that we live in a new era of instant two-way global communications. So we can reach almost every person on this planet, as long as the government, obviously, of that country allows it. And I think that we have not grasped yet, because this new age has just started in human history terms. It's a very small age. It's just recent. We have not grasped yet the enormous opportunity that this creates. Now, it does create, it's a two-edged sword. It does sometimes create an opportunity for those that will do harm, but it also creates a huge opportunity for those that will do good. So we have the ability now to understand and to overcome the barriers using technology to communications that have separated us into silos for years and years and years, religion and culture and language and so on. There is now a diminishing control of the state, and relatedly, the empowerment of non-state actors and ordinary people, because you all have a cell phone. You all have the ability to communicate. You all have the ability to make a video, just use the camera, or to take photographs, use the camera via phone. That's a huge, enormous change. And I think this new era could be channeled, it has to be channeled in the right direction, and we could do a lot of good using this new era in our human history.
Thanks for those. I think, that is absolutely what this continuing conversation from this panel should be about. And absolutely we'll look forward to what I can do is to make sure that we leverage the work that you and Kirit have done in order to continue to make that happen. And yes, inspire a lot of young people, because the tools and the technologies that Firdaus, you and Kirit have used with studios and many people that help you create content have got a lot easier, more accessible. People can do things today, with real-time technologies. They can use open source stuff. They can use powerful computers that couldn't produce images, going back 20 years. And today, I think there are a lot of people who can say what needs to be done by making that. And I think scholarships to young people, creating competitions where we can have social themes, bringing people right from the age of 10 to 25 into this whole movement is something that we should all be looking forward to doing together. So last word from you, Kirit, how can we take the burden from just people like yourself? How can we make the themes that came to you? As you said, I didn't go out to get the themes, they just came to me. Those themes are all around us, right? In all parts of the world, not the least in our country. There is still the pyramid, and we all know that the pyramid is a bit broader and heavier at the bottom. And so how can we do more to make this happen? Is there a way that we should do that? I know that today we see there are hundreds of thousands of more creators than there were, say, just 10 years ago, talking of animation, right?
Yeah.
We have 30, 40, 50, 60,000 just in India, new people coming into this industry. So there is a groundswell of talent, and of course they have to be busy making a livelihood. So they have to do the work that they do in production houses and studios and so on and so forth. But they also have a lot of them that have a conscience, and a lot of them have come from tier 2 and tier 3 towns in India, and they've seen the difficulties that they've transcended by coming and getting a more urban job. And maybe there is a fire in many of them that we have to know how to light, to the point that Firdaus made, that we can be mentors to them. We should create programs for them, and maybe templates that they can use so that the stories that you are telling with the burden that you've been successful in carrying that torch can also be passed on to many folks to make real social change. I believe that animation can create real social change and upliftment for countries like ours. So the last comment from you, Kiriton, maybe how we should be lighting that fire.
So first of all, it's not a burden for me because it is a burden. In fact, making a film on various social issues is a burden off my back. I suffer from the guilt of not having done enough sometimes, most particularly with the homeless film. So it's my rise of Tatra right now, and my life moved from ambition. Not that I don't have ambition right now, but my life moved from ambition to purpose quite some time back. And of course, I look for opportunities to see what is attracting me. So there are of course a lot of issues out there, a lot of problems out there, and a lot of people come to me and say, you know what, women's issues and child trafficking and women trafficking and this and that. Yes, each one is hurtful. Each one is pertinent. Each one is important and pressing. But if I don't find the right anchors to articulate that problem, I usually do not get into it, because the people who are going to articulate that problem statement to me and to take me to the right people, or to take me to the victims who actually created triumph out of the mess that they were in. So the human stories of triumph, those are the ones that attract me as well. So till I'm not able to find those plot points in the story, I usually don't engage in it. But the important part here to understand is that the entire system is working against us. For the simple fact that you have documentaries, like I've made many documentaries, I've made a lot of short films, but there is no distribution platform, and nobody is willing to take it up. Nobody is willing to pay even half your cost of production. CSR funds, when you were talking about earlier, CSR funds essentially think it's a waste of time to make a audio-visual production. And that's where people like Firdaus, who can articulate why it is important, to have prevention and what you can do with a simple audio-visual to demonstrate, an explainer audio-visual, or even a simple audio-visual which has a cognitive dissonance in it to actually help change the system. You'll never be able to quantify in terms of how many preventions you've been able to make. But the fact is that audio visuals has a powerful medium, and if the story is told in the right way, then obviously it will make a huge impact. So these are many challenges. So most of the times I'm working in isolation, and I don't look at what is my final audience. Like, will this get on to Netflix or Amazon or Hotstar or XYZ? I don't know. I mean, it's unlikely to get into this platform. But I'm saying, here's, I made a film on the homeless. Now I have to make it reach to maximum people in power so that they can see it and they can be shamed, because this is our India. You cannot deny it. You can put a blindfold on it. You can walk the other way. You can invisibilize them, but they are right there in front of your face. And once you walk out after seeing the film, there is no way in hell you will be able to invisibilize them again, because the film has humanized them.
I think that's a great note to end on, that sometimes change is caused by provocation, and the provocation is for them to be provoked to think differently.
Right.
We know that they say that nothing that is worth anything comes easy. And I think I want to end by saying that the two of you have been at the least inspirational beyond belief. This event is called the Animation Masters Summit, and I would like to celebrate the two of you as animation masters who have done something that is completely different from the commercial template in which we normally view animation. So yes, I know that you are unlikely to be able to engage with many of the world majors in the biggest studios. This is not going to necessarily, your next film is not necessarily going to be something that is commissioned by a big Hollywood major. But guess what? I think that the themes, I think what you're bringing to the world is bringing back the values that are timeless in ways that I think the world, the material world of progress and development sometimes forgets, and also creates very uneven impacts in different parts of the world. And hopefully this these messages and what you're doing helps to restore health and harmony and a good feeling everywhere. So thank you very much for a fantastic conversation. And I do think that hopefully this is not the last word, and that I can commit to working with you behind the two of you gentlemen in order to push this conversation further in the times to come. So thanks very much, and lovely having both of you.
Thank you, Birain, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. I'm going to.
Why, Daddy? Why do people laugh and say ugly things about our mommy and sister? Why, Daddy? Why do the village elders say they don't belong here anymore? This is our home. We were all born here. Why, Daddy, does the rest of the family never visit since the militia came? Why do we have no family or friends anymore? I saw, Daddy. Mommy and big sister did nothing wrong. The militia attacked them. Why did the militia do wrong to Mommy and sister? Mommy begged them not to harm sister. Mommy was so brave. Please don't ignore them, Daddy. Why are you abandoning them? Where will they go? What did they do to deserve this? Why are you letting the militia win? Why are you punishing Mommy and sister? Why are we punishing our family because of what the militia did? Remember, Daddy. Remember, Daddy, how we laughed. What fun we had together. I'm so proud of Mommy and big sister. They are the bravest people in the nation. Silence is wrong, Daddy. Silence hurts Mommy and sister more than the militia did. Come, Papa. Mama is crying. Big sister needs. They need us. We must be good men. We must be good men.